Hello, hello, hello. So we're live. And all right, got it. Okay, so it's good to be back. We have been on a 1-month hiatus, right? And we are back. Last month we didn't have a live like we used to. So thank you for joining us, those who are joining us, and thank you for being with us all this time. Okay, so today we have doctors and things joining us from different parts of Ghana. And our discussion is, what's the topic? Our discussion is about biblical womanhood and other gender issues in Ghana. I mean, we are going to be talking about the book by The Making of Biblical Womanhood by Beth Alison Barr. But we are going to have a lot more to talk about our community, Ghana. When I say community, people think that I mean Christian community, but it's all part of it, because some people say we are a Christian nation, so yeah, we are sitting inside. So thank you for joining us. I don't know how we should say listeners or viewers, because we are not a TV station, Anna. Anyway, so today on the SimplyChrist Live, we have with us Dr. Amanda Odoi, and then we have Dr. Dorcas.
Yes, sir.
Dorcas Cody, okay. And his husband may show up, but when he shows up, we'll sack him. Her husband may show up. We don't want any men here. I'm the only man who will be talking plenty, but I really don't have anything to say. It's a day for the ladies, and thank you for joining us. I think we should just go straight ahead and start the conversation. So we want to talk about womanhood. As a woman in Ghana, what has been your experience? I want the two of you to chime in. Dorcas, let me start with you. What has been your experience as a woman in this, growing up as a woman? I'm sure you claim that you don't have a lot of years on your.
Yeah, I'm a small girl.
But it starts from somewhere. What have you been taught? What have they been teaching you?
Okay, well, I grew up in a home where there wasn't any specific, like, a woman you have to be like this, or a guy you have to be like this. So let's say I lived in a bubble for a very long time, till probably secondary school, when then I began to realize that there were certain, should I say, characters or attitudes that I expected of women to behave like in a particular way that I didn't quite fit in, because, as I said, I wasn't brought up as a typical Ghanaian woman. Like, so it was a bit difficult to be outside of the box all of the time. Like, so you hear things like, hey, you don't know how to talk to a boy. Like, so my mate too, but then he's telling me that I don't know how to talk to him, because as a girl, I'm supposed to talk to him in a particular way, giving him respect. I remember, I think final year university, I was we're 8 in my class, 2 ladies and then 6 guys. And one of the guys in the class was like, the only way he's able to relate to me is he puts it in his head that Dorcas is a boy. Because if he reminds himself that I'm a girl, a lot of the ways I talk to you, he'll get angry. So he just puts it in his head that Dorcas is a boy. So I relate to her like I relate to boys. So yeah, there's a particular like box in which women are expected to behave. Like you talk quietly, you I don't know how to explain it as such, but I've never quite fit into that box. So I've been an outlier most of my life.
Interesting. Outlier for her. Okay. Amanda.
Yes.
Your experience. I hear you there. You have a thesis on that.
I think my experiences are similar to that of Dorcas.
Okay.
And that's just because when we are socializing people, there are different issues that come to play. So class, the social class, geographical location of the people. So if I grew up in a village, probably it would have been different. Or if maybe we grew up with parents that were like typical in ways that they have to bring up their daughters to fit in a certain way, maybe our experiences will be different. But that notwithstanding, in the general society, the assumption is that a woman will end up in a man's kitchen. So she has to learn how to cook, how to wash, how to clean. Whilst I was growing up, it wasn't so much of a thing because we had help. We always had domestic support. So I never knew that it was important for a girl to know how to cook so that she would be married or wash and clean until I got to the university. For me, I went to a girls' school, so I think it got worse. We're not really talking about those things until I got to the university. And people were cooking for their boyfriends, and I used to be surprised. I remember once my brother came to visit me, and then he says he was hungry. We're going to get food. When I came to even level 100 in the university, I had an uncle who used to cook. Then I'll go and eat, then come back to my room to sleep.
Wow.
My roommates were always complaining. So when my brother came and I didn't know how to cook, so my roommates had to cook, and it became a whole lot of a different ball game altogether. Then I sat in a gender class. That's when I understood that, okay, this is supposed to be. But generally, I think people are brought up to think that they're supposed to know how to cook and clean as women and all that. And then you're supposed to be calm, and I wasn't calm because I grew up with boys. For me, when I was growing up, it was like I have a whole lot of males in the house. Then I was the only girl every time. So, but when I started learning about the things that girls are supposed to do, I think I realized that indirectly people were sending hints, but I just didn't realize. I remember once my grandmother telling me that, oh, she feels sorry for me that I always have to play with boys, so I will not end up learning to behave like a girl. And then I remember once my mom got me a shoe and it was so tight, it was painful. So I took it off. My dad said, no, I'll wear it. Do I know what women go through before they get to behave like ladies? So like there were hints, but then because of probably the environment I grew up in, it wasn't so strong for you to be able to, for it to shape you to fit that typical ideology of who a woman is supposed to be. So those are my experiences. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I want us to have like a short introduction of yourself and add your background to it, like an introduction of yourself. Like tell us a bit more about yourself, because I think that will also give a good picture of what your experience is. And then after this, we will talk about what you think the picture of how a woman should grow up. You know, we all know some people who actually got that picture right and they were trained right, let's say, to get that picture before you. So when you see them, you're like, typical lady, traditional values and all of those things, and you are not. So so tell us, so Dorcas, tell us about what your background, like you are what work do you do?
Oh,
blah,
okay.
blah, blah.
I'm a veterinary surgeon by profession.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please, which school did you go to?
After school, in secondary school.
Yeah, secondary school.
Oh, it's not on the map.
When they say which school,
it's not on the map.
It's not on the map. Please mention it, and it will be on the map.
I went to Tema Secondary School.
Hallelujah.
It's known.
It has come on the map.
Like when we talk about known schools, and come.
Okay.
Some very yummy, but Maka.
Okay. But you are a veterinary
surgeon by
doctor
profession.
of animals.
Yes, please.
Okay. And Amanda?
So I'm a gender researcher, so say. Okay, and
Okay.
I call myself a feminist. And my secondary, I went to Brigals. So
okay, Brigals.
The Boston High.
How do you respond?
Hallelujah.
Okay, all right. It's a Christian school, eh?
Presbyterian school.
Okay, all right. Okay, so and they didn't teach you these things in there. They just focused on being women.
And because we're all girls, okay.
Feminism.
Where
did you get your feminism from?
Brigals culture. When you get there, they teach you how to walk. You have to walk like a lady. So,
okay. Okay.
I think that was the only thing.
That was the only thing. Okay. Yeah, but so let's have a let's understand what the typical woman growing up will be taught. Like, what were they taught? What in your idea? I mean, you are a researcher and you should have an idea as to what and so Amanda, yeah.
So as a woman, you're supposed to remain chaste. You have to marry a virgin.
Hallelujah.
You're supposed to know how to cook, clean, like keep a home. Women are domesticated. You're the one that will cook. You're the one that will clean, wash. You're not to be aggressive. You're supposed to be submissive. So you don't talk when men talk. Even when your brother hits you, your younger brother hits you, you're not supposed to hit back because women don't hit men. Okay. You're not supposed to talk back at men. So you don't become disrespectful where you go up. And then any time that you transgress these examples that you're given, the sanction you get is the verbal ones. If you behave this way, you will not get a husband. When you grow up, you will not get a husband. A woman that talks back at men will not get a husband. You will not. Sorry. You will not get a husband. You will not be able to find a good home for yourself. So women are forced to be like, you're supposed to be calm. You're not to be courageous. Assumption is that women are not courageous, actually. And then the idea is that women are not supposed to be smarter than men. So even when you outperform men in class, sometimes you are punished for performing better by your male colleagues and all those things. And so this is how the expectations are for women. You have sex before. If you have sex before you marry, then the sanctions are there. But for men, they can explore their sexuality, actually. And sometimes you ask yourself, so who are they supposed to be experimenting with till they get married and come for these virgins that they're supposed to be getting? But these are the general expectations that we have of women. And the assumption is that women are not supposed to be too educated as well. That was previously, but I think things are changing. Though there are people who still believe that as a woman, you don't have to go to school too much because eventually you end up in some man's kitchen and you cook and clean and take care of babies. So these are the general expectations that we have.
Okay. Are these Dorcas, give me your experience. Like what in your experience? I mean, you met other ladies, obviously, who had some forms of training. What were they taught?
So as she said, cooking, cleaning, so generally domestic stuff, so like home decoration, things around how to nurture a home, So even for she was saying something about like women not having to be smarter than men and more knowledgeable than men and all of that. So even for so let me say under wraps, then you are taught that even if you are like you feel like you have an idea about something that a man is doing that you feel you can do better, then you keep it to yourself, because like you have to watch the man do what he wants to do. So even in a typical like home, like a husband and a wife, and then the husband is doing something that the wife feels like can be done in a better way, she will have to keep it to herself and watch the man do what he intends to do, because you cannot, in quotes, correct a man, So then the other side is that then you will be doing your own thing in the background, so that if what he's doing fails, then you can like match up, because if you have to be thinking about the home and he's thinking about, in quotes, himself. So like if he does something and backfires, you also have your small thing that you are doing so that he can cover up for the children and for his mistakes and all of that. So there are all of these ideologies that are put into our heads.
Okay. Yeah, but Dorcas, you didn't add your description of yourself. You gave us that you were veterinary, whatever. I didn't say that you were married. What's going on?
Yes, please, I'm married. Like I most of the time forget to add it to my introduction.
Okay. I put it to you that you are married.
Yeah, I'm married. Okay. No, so I remember when I went to, so I was in Nigeria for 2 years, and that's the first, like anyone who is introducing me to somebody else is like, oh, this Dorcas, she's married. And I'm like, so when they actually asked somebody that, okay, so can't you introduce me without saying I'm married? They said no. That's like, so this is Dorcas, she's married before, or she's here to do what, like she's married comes after my name all the time.
Okay. So married defines
that is identity, because that's what makes her a proper woman. If you are not married, you're not a proper woman like that.
Correct. Anyway, but the next question is, I want us to talk about Christianity, what Ghanaian Christianity has, how it has affected the definition of womanhood in our society. Like how much of all that we are saying is sculpted or affected by Christianity. Like what made us the way we are? Is it the Christianity that we borrowed, or it's that we got from Europe, or it is our own traditional values? I don't know whether we can put the dichotomy there, but that's Okay. So okay, Dorcas, please help us here.
What I'll say is, I think patriarchy has always been, from the little I know, the researcher will either confirm or deny what I said. But from the little I know, I think patriarchy has always ruled in a sense. So then what we did as Christians was to pick and choose the things that enforce these patriarchal norms, and then like put them within our societal upbringing of women in the Christian society. So men already have the power, in quotes. So then all they had to do was to find scriptures and verses that enforce the power they want to continue to wield, and then push it down our throats for us to believe that, yes, they are the leaders and we are the followers.
Okay, that's interesting. But I in talking to Amanda, I actually found some things out about how patriarchy used to be, how African patriarchy was different from the patriarchy of the Europeans and all of that. Amanda, can you help us there? Can you give us a bit more?
Okay, so as we sit here, I don't know what we can clearly claim to be the Ghanaian culture or the Ghanaian way of upbringing, because after years of colonialism, we've lost a lot of what we had, because the little we know from our history suggests that women equally had power. Especially if you take those matrilineal societies where Asante Sansa, even being able to go to war meant that women were in the public space. So women were not really brought up to be timid like that. Some literature I have suggests that even our marital arrangements was way in which women were protected. I think when I was discussing with you, I don't know if I told you about this, the Ga community and why Ga women stay in their family homes instead of being with their husbands. It was to protect the economic activity. So it's a kenke home, and then she can't leave her husband's house. If she moves out, she will lose her job. She has to travel to come and cook and sell before school. So if you stay there, then the day you are off and you're not the one preparing the kinky and all that, then you can go and stay with your husband because you don't lose anything. And then days that you're on duty, you come. And it was also a way of protecting women from gender-based violence. Okay. So if you stay with your partner there, the idea that there will be friction and then you guys will be fighting a whole lot was. So if you stayed in your family home, you come, it was always fresh. But so then colonialism came, then Christianity was introduced. And then when Christianity was introduced, the notion of Victorian womanhood, a woman that must be chaste, well kept, covered, a woman that stays home for her husband to go out. So then our general society was also structured in such a way that men had to be at the forefront. So our patriarchal structures and all that. I'm not saying there might not have been, there might have been, because we had chiefs who were also there. But then it happened that, okay, now the patriarchal structure was introduced where men are the heads of institutions, men are the ones that go to school. If women went to school, then they had to learn vocational skills. That's supposed to learn how to cook and clean, so that you can sew the clothes of your partner, your husband, the children, and all those things. Then they came with Christianity as well, which brought this culture and understanding of what God says about women and men. So largely what we know recently is basically from our colonial rule and also Christianity, because then they got us to move from the understanding and acceptance of our traditional ways of practices and all. So now, if you're doing research, most of them when we're doing research and we ask them, how do you come to know this? The main source of people's understanding and knowledge about who they are and their gender relations and how to relate to men and women is basically from my pastor said this. I heard this when I went for a marriage ceremony. I heard this from a pastor on radio, or my imam said it. So religion is one of the key contributors to how we are shaped recently. And because the Christian population dominates in Ghana, even when you're not Christians, they've heard about Christian teachings and all that. And our Christian teaching says that a woman must be submissive to her husband. Okay. So the man is the head. So now we have this concept. So a lot of social media, God created it that way. So it was surprising when I went to class once and we're talking about gender issues, and then some people said in class that God does not want men to be below women. So even in sex, men must always be on top. You can't reverse it. And this is something they've learned from church. So this is how it's shaping women and men. So these women in the church will come to understand that that's how they're supposed to relate and all those things. So Christianity has been the major tool in shaping how women and men are supposed to be. And then the Victorian notion of who a woman is. So this British rule of, okay, women are supposed to be home, cooking and cleaning, are the ideas we've carried through till now. So I would say Christianity has been key to how we are shaped. The head of house is that Christian structure that we have. God, then the man as head, then the wife that comes, and then the children. So we've all come to accept men as the breadwinner. So it's a man that goes to work and comes and brings money. Then the woman stays. The woman is the one that takes care of children, and then the woman is the one that must suffer and give birth. So to the point that some men want their wives to push even when they cannot push and give birth, because then you are not being a Hebrew woman. So all these messages are out there. So that's what has basically shaped us into who we are. So if you're a woman that even your husband, you have this kind of egalitarian relationship where you can share and contribute. And then your mother comes to the house and she goes like, hey, you've taken my son to juju because now you can contribute to the house. You can talk to your husband anyhow. Your husband cooks for you and all those things. So for me, I think religion and then Christianity, most importantly, has shaped our ideas and understanding of who we are as women and what we are supposed to be. And even as men, actually, what is a man's place in society has always been from what they've learned from church.
I mean, this is interesting to me because I think that if we talking about the history, I think that we are now we call it our culture. Now yes, we call this our culture, and it's nowhere near what we really were. Yeah. It's much more of what the Western world has brought to us that we've accepted, and that has really redefined Yeah, I'm sure we'll come to the book and what the book exposes about this whole idea. I mean, the reason why we go to the book is we are going to the book is mainly because of the fact that we have been affected by the West. And so this is a book about the Western world and how biblical womanhood was created and crafted by patriarchy, and all of a sudden we claim that is our culture, and we're moving around with it. Anyway, you say you are a feminist. Yes, so please define feminism for us. And then, Dorcas, are you a feminist? You don't want to play with terms.
Ashana is a feminist, though.
Yeah, Ashana is a feminist. That one I know. Like
your husband is a
110%.
feminist. Your husband is a feminist, but you don't dabble in these things.
Oh, you let her talk. We'll get to that.
Okay. All right. So so please let's define feminism. And then I think feminism has like different levels of feminism. Let's talk about feminism now. What is feminism?
Okay, so when we talk about feminism, it just looks at the ideology and understanding that women and men deserve equal access to rights, opportunities, and resources in society. So one sex should not be discriminated against because they are women, and that we all deserve to have equal access to the resources that exist in society. Fair share, we all deserve our fair share of it. And then, so we should not be discriminated against. So for example, women and men deserve equal rights and access to education. You do not deny a woman education because she's female, because she contributes equally to society. Okay. And then we have different kinds of feminists or feminism. They all explain how women's subordination come about. So feminists also define or explain how they feel the subordination of women has come about. So some believe that it's because women have been left out. Generally, the liberal feminists, that keeping women home and not giving them access to education and all is a reason why women are not represented in the public sphere. There's some that believe that capitalism, those are the Marxists, capitalism and how capitalism is structured, is why women are subordinated. And then we have the Black feminists who also believe that, okay, the intersection of issues. So slavery and all contribute to why women experience a level of subordination and lack of access and participation. So they brought about intersectionality. And then we have the radical feminists who believe that the patriarchy, how the social structure and women's dependency on men and all those things are some of the reasons. So one thing that cuts across is that women do not have equal opportunities in the world as men do. But what causes them not to have is where they come in differently to explain what they think is the cause of their subordination or lack of access and opportunities available to women.
Okay. Dorcas, do you have any English to add to this? Plenty English.
No. Like spot on.
Okay. So I read something about feminism, and there was a woman who wrote a book about how she managed to craft and create some different form of feminism that she thinks is toxic. She's Catholic, and she said that she was not. It's a Christian kind of a thing. She said that she wasn't part of. She was used to create a narrative about feminism, which is about the sexual revolution coming in America, the sexual revolution. So now they added some parts of that to feminism. So they are trying to let women feel like, okay, abortion should be rights for women. Women can feel free and be proud of. So she said that she wrote for a magazine and she made up stories about how rambunctious women were having sex here and there. And she made up the stories to give you this extreme female characters so that they will be like, so that it will cause other women to become that way. And she said that in the end, she wrote a book about it. It was like how she helped to create this toxic this thing. So I'm looking at that story. I'm feeling like, okay, we have women now who actually feel like feminism means that I don't have to get married. Like I don't have to get married. I have to hate men. I have to rebel against the system, and I can sleep with 1,000 men and also have like that as my achievement, and also feel free to do. What do you have to say about that, Dorcas? You first.
Hey, why me first?
Tell us.
Okay, so
I think they have a pepper dem ministry or something like that. I think there's a pepper dem and there's a sugar dem.
My husband will come for your head though.
Hey, please. Tell us.
Anyway, so yeah, when you talk about what you have carved as toxic feminism, I think that was my first introduction to feminism, which is why I was a bit skeptical, hectic, if I say withdrawn from the whole ideology of feminism until I met my husband and got to hear about, as Amanda explained, all these like other let me say right explanations to what feminism actually is. So I think a lot of people who fight hard against the word feminism is because of this, in quotes, toxic display of what people think feminism actually is. What do I have to say about it? Well, I think with every, in quotes, movement comes extremists. And so that does not negate the core, should I say, core things that the movement wants to push against, or the core things that the movement wants to like bring about. But of course, there will be extremists who will take things in a sense overboard and then try to cause people to see that, as you have said, toxic arena of what feminism actually is.
Right. Amanda, you have anything to say about that?
I don't know how toxic that is, but I like Doka said that people take things extreme, and then sometimes when people get information, they don't question it. They just take this. But feminism talks about, so if I'm talking about feminism and I say that women deserve equal rights, and then they have rights to choice. So I have the right to make a choice of whether I want to marry or not. Mm-hmm. So if I tell you that, how are you going to use the information? I don't know. Okay. So then I say, okay, I don't want to get married. So I have a choice to marry. I'm not saying that women should not marry, that when you don't marry is when you become a feminist. But then I'm saying that you don't have to let somebody force you when you're not ready. It has to be your own choice. It has to be your own decision. Okay. Women must have the right to decide when they want to have sex and who they want to have sex with. So somebody just takes that and say that, okay, then it means that I can have sex with a lot of people. Okay. But there are some people that equate themselves to men. So if we say that women and men have equal rights, and then if men show their virility through how many women they sleep with, the conquest they make, and so I'm a woman. So if I have the choice, then I should be able to sleep with as many men as I want. This is not a feminist discourse. Mm-hmm. It is an interpretation from the person's perspective as to what they want to do with that information. You have the right to give birth, and you have the right to keep a pregnancy or not. Does not mean that you should go aborting. I don't have a problem with people when they abort. If you make that choice and it's your own and you are not forced into doing so. And then the reason why feminists also talk about rights of abortion and everything is that when you come to the workplace, there's something we call maternal penalty. Women are punished for getting pregnant. So you are hired and it's not time for your confirmation that you get pregnant. You can lose your job. And because the woman doesn't want, so if you're not allowing, this patriarchal structure is not allowing it, then if the woman doesn't want to keep that pregnancy and wants to keep her job, give her the right to be able to make that choice. Okay. to be able to terminate it. And then to the point where sometimes the carrying the pregnancy to term is injurious to the woman's health, and because she has to give birth at all costs, which is also part of the patriarchal structures that we have, the state control of the woman's body and what she can do with it, saying that keep that pregnancy. And that's what's happening in the US right now. You can't abort a pregnancy when you go to the hospital and all that. And that also has consequences because people hide and terminate pregnancies all the same, and it's risky. So then they decide that, okay, I will not get pregnant so that I can keep my job, so that I can function equally in society. So these are some of the interpretations that people have and how it makes it look as if feminism does not say hate men. That would be misandry, saying that hatred for men. But what she says is that give women and men equal opportunity. And I also tell people every time that the background of the people sending the message is also very important. Some people are very aggressive, so how they send their message across is quite aggressive. So if you sit in a class of somebody like that, you come up being very like toxic, because you come out a very different person. So feminists that grew up in like war-torn countries and all that have a different approach to how they handle the issues. And women activists and feminists that even in Ghana, they're not South. If you see or speak to women that are from the North, their way of approaching and discussing the issues are different from, or if you see a Ghana woman, and how she sends her message across and she's saying those things, the things she will use and all that. So all those things come to play. And so sometimes we misinterpret their messages. But the core principles are that there's equal rights, respect for all, right to choice, right to participation and representation and all. But what people do with the message is sometimes what you can't help, you can't control. So that's why sometimes people meet some feminists and they kind of like, oh, but then every time we've heard, and this is how we've heard it and all. And messages change from one person to the other.
Yeah.
I pick what I like, and then I tell somebody, and then the person takes it like that. Some people hate men. Okay. Personally, in their own personal life, they hate men. So no, it has nothing. So she becomes a feminist, and you know her to be a feminist, and she's telling you and she tells you that men are like this, you don't have to be with men and all that. Then you tend to think that, okay, all feminists are like that. But we have fathers, we love our fathers. We have brothers that we love. We have cousins, male cousins. So if feminism is about hatred for men, then we hate all these men in our lives.
Yeah. Some say men are trash. Anyway.
And sometimes it's because of their background.
Maybe their fathers,
maybe their fathers were not in their lives, so they come out very bitter, or they experience with sexual abuse. So they've grown up with this level of hatred, which has underlying issues, not necessarily because they are feminists.
Okay. Now you've used terms like patriarchy, and I think you said something about egalitarianism, complementarianism. Let's help us here. Let's please take us to school. What is patriarchy? What is complementarianism? What is egalitarianism? Is there any other ism that we need to know about when it comes now to gender issues?
Nothing comes to mind kindly, but then maybe as I'm talking, it might come up. But like two key terms that come up mostly is patriarchy and egalitarian relationships. That one you're more likely to come across if the other concepts come. So when we talk about patriarchy, we talk about rule of fathers or rule of men, or the structure of society such that institutions and structures that exist in the society favor men as against women, and they subordinate women's role and position in society to the dominance of men. So, and this patriarchal structures that we talk about comes through the structuring or construction of our gender. We learn them from home. What are you told? And then at home, at church, there's those institutional structures that we have: family, religion, kinship. So in kinship of family, religion, media, politics and all, and how they shape our understanding of what is a woman's position and what is a man's position. So in politics, we have come to understand that in Ghana, men are presidents, women are maybe vice president. We are not even women are presidents, ministers for gender and social protection. And then so even in politics, that we are worse off. And then in the house, the man as head of house. In religion, who is the church, who is the pastor, who is the elder, who sits where in some religion women can't even lead when men are, like the Islam, and then in our space in Christian spaces, some churches women and men don't sit together and all. But this don't end. So we have patriarchal issues in the state. It comes in the forms of laws as well. What do our laws tell us about women, what they can access, what they cannot access, and all that? Amen. So, for example, laws on abortion, that is control of a woman's body, what she can do with it and all that. Okay. Laws on marriage and all that, laws on property, who has property and all that. Until recently in Ghana, if you needed to open a bank account, your husband needed to sign. So imagine you are not married. If you needed a passport, your husband needed to give you permission to get a passport and all those things. And so this is what patriarchy is about. So in the church, is about the messages and then the structure of the family we have in schools. Who are the leaders in the workplace and all those things. So it's just basically saying that men are supposed to be head, women are supposed to be subordinates. That's how our patriarchal structure works in our society. When it comes to egalitarianism, it's just an ideology that people deserve fair treatment, fair access to this opportunity, to these resources, and we need to have equal opportunity, equal contribution, fairness in participation, and all in these various spaces. Complementarism. Okay, this one is I think this is more a religious thing than the general that talks about men as leadership. So it's also a form of patriarchal structure in way of saying that women complement men. So our basic role in the society, in our men's life, is just to support them whilst they rule. To make them things as servants to men.
It's not said quite that way, because that's not very palatable. But Dorcas,
but that's what
Dorcas, do you have anything to say?
You know, to the point that people believe that this issue of complementarism means that if you are serving your husband, you're supposed to kneel down for him to finish eating, wash his hands. Can you imagine?
When you look in the Bible,
I've seen that video. There was one pastor in Nigeria who preached that message, and it went viral.
You see?
Okay.
How can you think of such a thing?
But I think they have examples in the Bible, so obviously they want to look at.
So the women knelt down and waited for their partners to finish eating and wash their hands.
Oh, maybe not to that extent, but maybe you are trying to be holier. That is why you are doing that, because Sarah called the husband Mire,
my Lord,
my Lord. So because she called him my Lord and served him and did all these things, like if you want to be holy like Sarah, you can even decide to be extra. You understand? So as being men, there will definitely
you enjoy it.
We'll give you more reason to go the extra mile, you know.
Exactly. Because it benefits you.
Yeah, it benefits, yeah. Anyway. So so we're fighting for equal opportunity, all of these things. That's interesting. What are your comments about the stigma of being single, stigma of being unmarried as a woman, stigma of being married without kids in our society and in our culture? Like, what are your comments about that? How do you feel in this situation as a married woman who doesn't have kids? Dorcas, Casa.
Who is here to have kids?
No, please, right now, the people haven't seen kids, so they are not discussing that. Why are you yet to have kids? How long have you been married, young lady?
I've been married for 3 years.
Hallelujah. You should have released
3.5 years, actually.
I'm sure you should have released 3 by now.
Hey, sir.
I'm sure that's how the society. Tell me, in your first year, did you get people telling you?
Who Watchers Association?
Salam.
Yes, husband. Thank you very much for protecting.
I told you to be careful.
I know. Doctors, please speak to us, right?
Okay, married for 3 years without kids. I think what has, in quotes, saved me is the fact that when people bring it up, I tell them that I'm in school, and then they understand. So some go like some women actually understand like and they like finish school because having a child and going to school is stressful, blah blah blah. Others are like, but I mean, you can do both. Like, what stops you from doing both? But you see, for me, that's not even the discussion. Like, because it has nothing to do with that, you know. But people have to give themselves a reason to understand why I've been married for more than 3 years and I don't have children. So, like, they just have to give themselves a reason. Like, they don't understand, and I tell them that. Well, it just hasn't happened. So, like, are you actively doing something about it? I'm like, no. Why don't you want children? I'm not sure. Then it becomes a whole different ball game. So, it's like a requirement that after you get married, you have to have children. And it proves the woman you are, because a woman is a man with a womb. You understand? So you have to bear the fruits of the womb to be able to show that you're a woman. But as I said, it hasn't really hit me too much because I've been away. So it's just, oh, you're away, okay, you're away, okay. But I'm saying, I'll now have to be answering hard questions, you know. Yeah.
Is there an extra pressure? Is there extra pressure because of being a Christian woman in this regard? That's a question somebody's asking.
Oh yes, especially because in a sense, fruitfulness as in terms of childbirth is how do I put it? Is seen as like God blessing your marriage. So once you have not had children, then like God has not blessed your marriage visa, so then there's a problem. So are you praying about it? Are you fasting about it? Like all of those things, because you have to have children to be able to show within the Christian community that like God is blessing you. So yeah, there's actually more pressure from within the church than without. So yeah.
Interesting. Because I have a friend who got married, I think it was like 3 years or something, and the head pastor's wife asked her whether she has been faithful.
Hey.
Are you sure you're doing everything right? Are you being faithful? Are you being faithful? Are you doing the right things? I mean, are you being faithful? I mean, that kind of like, that was really weird. But I mean, the church,
because they need to make sure that you are doing everything right so that God is blessing your marriage by you having children.
Because but that pressure really is I see something very abnormal about the pressure that you should even give birth.
No, it's not supposed to be normal. It's not supposed to be normal, but it's every. So there was a friend of mine who was saying that she doesn't particularly understand women, because it's even women who are more likely to give the pressure to another woman to like give birth. Like, you know what you have been through, and instead of like putting it in an encouraging way, then it's more of adding our own way and then trying to find solution to what is actually going on with you as to why you have not yet given birth. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure from the church that is unwarranted. That's unnecessary, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay. Amanda.
You
are a doctor, you are not married. What is going on?
I don't like, okay, I don't really fancy, I don't know. I think you can have, I think marriage is work, personally. I think it comes with a whole lot of emotions and something that I think about, and sometimes I feel like maybe I'm too selfish to want to add on that stress and everything. Okay. Then you get married. Okay, if it was just about the two of us, it would have been okay. Then I have to have children. I think about it, and that's also another level.
You have to have children.
Easy. You have to give birth, and it's another, because it's a whole lot of stress for me. I find it to be stressful. What saved me was also, like Doctor said, because every time they say, oh, let me finish school. let me finish school. So it was helpful. I remember my mom told me that her friends are asking her them why they are making me go to school and not getting married. As if all that, you see, the very existence of women and their identity is tied to marriage. You have to be tied to some man. You have to be associated with someone for you to be a whole person. That idea. If I had my own way, maybe I'll marry very late in my life, very, very late. Because like I have a partner, I have a boyfriend, and everything. We're okay. I actually think we are okay being boyfriend and girlfriend for that. If I'm tired, I'll just go away. But when you're married, I feel like it's like a whole stress. It takes a whole lot of decisions for you to end that relationship and all those things. So, and one thing I have come to realize of late is that most career women are more likely not to marry, not to have children, not because they don't have wombs, they can't give birth, but then the work environment is not structured with a woman's body in mind. So the structures at work that did not give you the space to want to have children, because you'll be punished, you'll be penalized for having more children. You see, your husband is in another company impregnating you. You are keeping the babies and you are being accused of giving birth too much, and he's relaxing somewhere and enjoying, and they are rewarding him. Oh, you're doing a good job, but nobody will ever question him. We have a similar experience here where a colleague of mine had 2 kids, and already they were saying that it looks as if all she's interested in was in family. Around the same time she was giving birth, our male colleagues were impregnating their wives. So they were giving birth also to elsewhere, but nobody was questioning them and all these things. So there's a lot of pressure to want to have to give birth when you're a woman. I keep asking people that if I want to have children, I don't have to marry to have them. You can actually have them outside of marriage anyways. But then this idea that God said that we should give birth like so then we have to give birth. That's how people don't even plan. But I believe that pregnancy must be planned and all those things, because it takes a lot of way to. So from the Christian perspective, it's pressure. And the reason why what Dorcas was mentioning, okay, people are saying women are the gatekeepers. They put the responsibility on the woman. If you are not getting married, go and ask your daughter why she's not getting married. Go and ask your daughter why she's not giving birth. So they are forced to also, and then your mother will be blamed for you not getting married. Your mother will be blamed for you not having children. You didn't raise your daughter well, and all those things. And sometimes the proof of your fertility is to show that you're not promiscuous before you married. To show you're not promiscuous before you married, you have to give birth so that there were no abortions. But people tend to forget that sometimes biology and a whole lot of things happening. I read this article that says that in about, I think, 20 years' time, both men and women will need assistance with fertility for us to be able to have children. So it's not just a woman's issue anymore. It's men and women. But sometimes it's not even the women that are the trouble.
Yeah.
Women will be blamed for it all the same. Yeah, so there's pressure you have to marry so that we can tie you to somebody. Whose wife is that? That's how come Dorcas is always introduced. She's my friend. Because
yeah. This is Mrs. Yeah. She's married.
You know, people insist that they're Dr. Mrs. And then my mentor, Ashina's mom, will not use maybe Professor Mrs. And people in the university have issues with her, why she wants to leave Mrs. out. But everybody knows that she's married to one person. So why do you want me to insist again that I am a Mrs. before you find it? Yeah, so it's a problem. And they rub it in. The way those married will rub it in your face.
Explain that. When you say rub it in,
so I'm married, and my husband does, and even conversations that do not require my husband.
Okay.
They have to say my husband, like as if like you would die if you hear my husband. Achieved. Yeah, like they have achieved. Actually, your education doesn't matter. Doctor's title is not important. Being a doctor is not important. Being a Mrs. is much more important than being a doctor. Actually,
it's much more. Yeah.
When if she introduces herself as a Mrs., she'll get more respect than she introducing herself as
a doctor. Yeah. Oh. Wow. Anyway, interesting. So I think we can. I don't know whether you have anything else to say with regards to our society, our Ghanaian society, and feminism, with regards to some of the observations about the way we treat women and the way we treat men are treated. I think, obviously we see that women treat women also the same way. It's basically something is written in the laws of the country, that this is in the laws of patriarchy. It's like patriarchy rules, and as you were saying, the man is always the head, and it is formed in. I don't know, how do we get the younger generation? Do you think it's different? It's coming different with the now generation? Let's talk about people younger than. You don't think there's a difference, Amanda? Okay, no, Dorcas, complete your no. Complete your no. Explain.
No, I don't think there's a difference. There's much of a difference. I feel as if the young men, maybe I'm biased, but from where I sit, it looks like the younger men are even feeling a lot more entitled to these patriarchal. So it's like I see it as if, how I see it is like they want to eat their cake and have it too. They want to have a career woman who will still come home and be cooking for them and cleaning for them. You know, they want a woman who contributes to the home, and yet like who contributes to the home and yet be taking care of the kids and like doing all the in quote housewife duties. It's like they want both, you know. And I feel it's worse of an entitlement. I don't know if you get me.
Yeah, I think Amanda.
I think it hasn't changed much because the ideologies we have haven't changed, and the people who are socializing. But there's hope because now people are challenging the status quo and these structures. So you mentioned Pepper Dems and how they are drawing attention to the toxic narratives about gender constructions and how it needs to be changed. I think one thing we also have to understand is that patriarchy does not only favor men. There are some women that benefit from patriarchy. There are women that benefit from the structure. So, for example, why do we have women in parliament who are not well represented? Like when you look at the women population, but then they are not ready to do anything about it because they're enjoying the benefits that they're getting as a few women in those spaces. Similarly, if you take mothers-in-laws enjoy from their husband's power in the home. If my mother comes into my matrimonial home, my husband will respect him and all that. But when my mother-in-law comes to the house, she's a top boss. She benefits, you know. And these women that do FGM and all that. So most of the time when we talk about patriarchy, is as if it's only men that benefit from it. But we have women that benefit from it as well. And then we also have to get the understanding that these gender constructions also affect men too. There's toxicity that comes with it, and it affects men and the ability to engage well in society. There are lots of people that may be asking for these entitled resources, their idea that, okay, I'm entitled to this sense of entitlement they have. There are lots of men that ordinarily may not want to, they want to shed off those things, but then they will be mocked for not being men enough. They will be laughed at and all those things. So when we are talking about this, we have to let men understand that the toxicity that comes with these assumed benefits also affects them in ways where a man cannot even ask his wife for support because then you're a weak man. Where a man hates a woman not because he wants to, where a man forces to have sex for long hours just to prove he's a man when ordinarily he would not want to, and all those things. Where a man has to force and have a male son when he probably is okay with one female child or maybe about two, but then society is putting those pressure on them and all that. So patriarchy does not just benefit men, it has consequences for men as well, and it benefits women too. So that's how come when we're talking about patriarchy, we talk about the structures that ensure the existence of this. These structures may not necessarily be men. There could be women also enforcing these structures and making them work in their favor and in the favor of the men, because they have to do men's bidding and all the same. Those who do the FGM cuts, they know it's painful, they know it has consequences. But if they don't do it, then they have failed as women who are gatekeepers of the communities. And they will lose the assumed status that they have, the respect they get for being in the leadership, that elitist club that they're enjoying in the society.
Wow. Anyway, now we can talk about the book. Those who have read it, and those who haven't finished reading it, we can all have a discussion about the book. Yeah. So I mean, Dorcas, you are the lead reader.
Hey.
What do you have to say? Like, what's your first impression? Like a summary of the book. What is Beth Barr's The Making of Biblical Womanhood? What's the summary you would give?
Okay, so generally the summary is the fact that evangelical Christ, or should I say mainstream American evangelical Christianity has been intentional about putting women in the backbench for men to take the lead and women to follow. So as Amanda was saying earlier, within certain Christian constructs, a woman cannot teach or lead a service that men are involved, like that have men in the congregation. So I remember somewhere in the book, the author made mention of the fact that she wasn't even allowed to teach a youth group that had boys, like boys younger than her that she could probably have given birth to. But like because they are male, then she can't teach them because she's female. And I mean, how in the long term this has contributed to marginalizing women over and over and over again within both the Christian congregational space and within the home. So like between the husband and the wife. So then the wife has to be submissive to the husband, and how these Christian interpretations of some of the Pauline scriptures have influenced these ideologies, which in actual fact are wrong interpretations just to keep men in the forefront and have women in the backbench. So I think that's the summary of what she was trying to put out. Yeah.
Okay. So Amanda, any summary? You have a little bit of things that you gleaned from the book.
Yes, I think the little I got from it is the fact that patriarchy is not a biblical creation as we assume, but then is a human creation. It's something that men have created to ensure that women are subordinated and serve the needs of men. And also the fact that we need to place the scriptures in context when we are trying to interpret them, and that how people interpret them may not necessarily might have been the intention of the authors of those scriptures. So that's the idea.
Okay, so the book, I don't know what do you think that we should talk about from the book? What do you think is very pivotal to what, like something that hits you in the book? Amanda, what really hits you? What surprised and shocked you in the book?
I think looking at the examples she gave and how this happens in US when we actually think that they're supposed to be way advanced in about rights and egalitarian relationships and all. I felt like, okay, we are doing way better in Ghana. I think we are way. There's no church. I don't know. I haven't seen any church that would say that a woman cannot teach Sunday school or youth because then they are men. They cannot, except maybe in Islam congregation that. But in a Christian congregation, I have yet to hear anything like that, which means that we are doing way better. Because even women can head and own churches, then we are far advanced. I cannot imagine myself teaching in class and the students will come and tell me to go and show my text to my husband to grant me permission before I come to teach it. So that it makes you understand that we don't always have to look at certain spaces and what you're doing as if it's the whole. That's what happens to the whole country. And we have to understand that there are intersections of issues and there's a need for us to understand. Okay, as feminists, one argument we always make every time is also the fact that the Bible is translated. And whoever translated it might have done that in their own understanding of what the text should have been. So what we are reading might not necessarily be what is there. Maybe some man who felt that, okay, Sarah was serving and Sarah was holy. So then because it benefits him as a man, he says that, okay, then this is how Sarah did it, and not necessarily how it was. So I was happy to see that she was asking that we should place those scriptures in context and not read meanings into it as they are supposed to be. Those are the things that stood out for me.
Okay, Dorcas, anything?
Yeah, just to add a little to where she left off concerning the placing them in context. So being in Nigeria, in the Yoruba part of Nigeria, I saw how as part of what probably wasn't their culture but what I saw was there was like they have this respect culture. So like a young person respecting an old person. So if you're a young person, you're greeting an older person, you have to kneel and greet. So then when the person, the older person will greet you back and then tell you to get up. So it's ingrained in the Yoruba culture. So I can see how maybe as a form of endearment, a wife can kneel to greet her husband, within that culture, and then we'll take it and then make it to law, because we saw someone do that to her husband and she was Christian. So every Christian woman has to kneel down and greet her husband or something like that. So putting scripture in their historical context and cultural context is very, very, very important, which is what the author of the book kept hammering on. Another thing that really hit me personally was the change in narrative of sexuality among men and women. So I remember I shared this because I've always, when we talk about sexual abuse, I've always felt like, okay, yes, we should talk to the men. We should speak a lot more to men to control themselves and all of that. That certain things are not allowed, are not okay, and like you can't even you're not supposed to behave in a particular way towards a woman. But I also secretly felt that more importantly, we should also like arm the women with making sure that they don't put themselves in certain spaces or particular situations that will cause them to end up in like those situations, So, but not in a sense to victimize the women, but just know that these things are capable of happening. So make sure that you don't put yourself in a place where you don't end up doing being a victim of something that you didn't want to be a victim of. But then after reading the book, I mean, she made mention of the fact that historically women were a lot more sexually expressive than men. But now we always say that men and was say like mukatamu, so don't dress in a provocative way to entice the man because he cannot control himself and all of that. And then I realized that according to what she said, it has not always been like that. So men have always had the capacity to control themselves, but then the narrative was flipped just so that in a sense, women will not over-express their sexuality to tempt the men. And now it has become that it's the men who cannot control themselves. I don't know if, so that really hits me. So then it's changed the way I will talk to any man or any woman about issues concerning harassment and sexual abuse and all of that, because you have the capacity to stop whenever you want to stop. But because it's been socially put in their heads that, when you get a particular point, you are no longer thinking, you cannot control yourself. So then it's the women who have to make sure that men do not get to that point. But like, there's no such point. Both men and women have the ability to stop whenever they want to stop. So you just have to, in a sense, learn to control yourself. So, I mean, that for me was very, like, it hits me because then it changed the way I viewed harassment and abuse and sexuality and all of that.
Interesting. So there's a question here, and I think that there's a question about, so from SFA on Facebook, who says that patriarchy is not biblical. I don't actually agree. The patterns are evident all through the biblical accounts. So, I mean, Okay, Dorcas, what do you have to say about that? Because I mean, people think that there is patriarchy written in the Bible. There's evidence of it in the Bible. But when there's evidence of it in the Bible, does it mean that that is what we are supposed to do? I don't know. That's the first question that comes to my head. That's the first question that comes to my head. If there's evidence of human beings doing something that is wrong in the Bible, is that meaning that anyway? Okay, maybe patriarchy is biblical, right? It means that it is evidence in the Bible, right? Does it mean it's a good thing or it's a right thing? I don't know what it is.
If you say something is biblical in an ordinary context, it's like you're approving it. Like, yes. Oh, this is biblical, so we should do it. So the fact that the patterns are seen in the Bible does not necessarily mean that's what Jesus Christ taught us to do. Because, even so, the same Paul who claim gave us these, in quotes, household codes as to like the man is the head and the woman is the follower and all of that. It's the same person who said when we come to Christ, there's no male or female, no Gentile or Jew, no Greek, like we are all the same before God, And Jesus Christ had women disciples. Like he had women following, he was teaching women, he was interacting with women. There's evidence of Paul interacting with women leaders in the church, So if he says patriarchy is biblical, fine, there are patterns in the Bible, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is what we are supposed to continue to follow. I don't know, like, if I've answered this question.
Yeah. Anyway, it's more like, okay, is stoning people biblical? Yes, it's in the Bible.
It's in the Bible, but that doesn't mean we should be stoning. Exactly.
People in the Bible, yeah. But is that something to follow? That's a different.
No, if we go to the Old Testament, there are a whole lot of laws that, in Leviticus, Exodus, Deuteronomy, that even God asked them to do in. God asked them to met out certain punishments in relation to certain things that the people, the Jews did, the Israelites did in those times. But we don't do them anymore because we believe in grace. So we say that, so when it comes to certain things, we like it. When it comes to the punishment, they will believe in grace. But when it comes to living as Christ has taught us to live, that when we come to Christ, we are all one and we are all together before God, then we still want to hold on to the Old Testament patriarchal systems.
Amanda,
I think the entire Bible is structured in a certain hierarchical way, where the people that matter were males, where there's respect for leadership, there's respect for authority. So the Bible uses patriarchs, and so when our pastors make reference to patriarchs and everything. Can we do away with it? It's something I don't think we'll be able to do away with it. But how we approach the issues is something we have to relook at. For example, man as head of the household. I don't see a time where the pastor will ever say that, okay, God, woman, man, then children. Okay. But we can say that in as much as there's a home and women and men contribute equally, we should give them respect. It doesn't, if you give your wife respect, it doesn't change. You don't become less of a man. You don't lose your male features because you're giving your wife respect and everything. So is in the Bible, is something, I don't know how you're going to do it, but how we send the message across and how we interpret it is something we have to learn to look at. So in as much as we have Abraham, they respected their wives. They respected their partners. Are we doing same? We've misinterpreted the text and making us look as if women don't matter. They even respect, even when some of them had to sleep with their maid servants who have children for them. It was with the consent of their wives. They didn't go around sleeping with them and giving birth and coming back to tell us that they are men so they can do whatever it is that they want to do. So it's about the interpretation. And then people will tell you that hermeneutics, the Bible is interpretative understanding. So how a man feels when he stands on the pulpit and what he thinks the Holy Spirit has interpreted the text to him is what he's putting across out there. So we might
Subjective
have
Holy Spirit.
much more, but so there's lack of objectivity personally. How you understand? So I believe that we have to know God for ourselves. So we have to read the Bible somehow and know things for ourselves. So a lot of the things we know have been people's understanding of what they think the text means. When you pick the text and you read it yourself, you might have a different interpretation. Pastors that have tried to have egalitarian relationships in their home, God has not killed them because they've not been cursed, because they've not sinned in any way. So we have to start to understand that respecting women does not make you less of a man. So there are people that believe that women are dirty because they are the ones that tempted Adam to eat the forbidden fruit and you see those kind of things. I don't know where we got those stories from. Up till now, people think that, some people even think that seeing women when there's an opportunity, you don't have to see a woman before you go out when you know you're going to do some deal, because women are bad luck and all those things. How do we get these texts? It's not written in the Bible that women are bad luck. I've not seen it anywhere. But then somebody standing on the pulpit and saying that that's what women are, based on something he has heard from where he's coming from and all those things. So people, as Christians, we have to understand that, well, respect your pastor, but know that your pastor is not the repository of all knowledge. He can falter when he's interpreting the text. So we have to learn to read these things on our own and place some of the things in context, and we'll be able to do well.
Yeah, okay. I think what do you think Jesus Christ, I think to talk about this whole patriarchy is not biblical, patriarchy is biblical thing. What is Jesus's reaction, and how did Jesus Christ treat like women? Was Jesus Christ biased towards men? Was he like, do we see that? And obviously people give us the disciples. The 12 disciples were all male. Say that again.
I think
the 12 apostles.
Yeah, there are 12 apostles. Me, I'm saying disciples. We are using a much higher level description than
I think that's also somebody's interpretation. Somebody who thinks that women should not be present probably eliminated women, because there are other texts, at least 3 key texts that shows that Jesus Christ respected women and gave them rights to hearing. The woman that was accused of adultery, and says that if you have not sinned, cast a stone, then they ran away. The woman by the well, the woman with the issue of blood. These 3 instances should let you know that Jesus Christ respected women. He gave them rights, access, participation, representation. But as human beings who think that women are not worthy, so sometimes when I hear this, I imagine some pastor in his robe. You see those white things and a woman with an issue of blood touching him. Hey, you dirty
those
him.
White things.
So it's our human nature and all this. But for me, I believe that Jesus Christ respected women. At least those 3 instances are enough for you to know that he gave women the right to be heard, representation, to be aware he is, and all those things. So an issue of Martha and Mary and all. So I don't know why people think that they can become God of themselves and say that women are not represented in sentences. How did we get those 4 stories or so to come in the Bible? If there are historical proofs to say that this is how the context operated, then there could have been some texts that have been left out that even meant that women were part of the apostles that we are talking about.
Yeah, I think also, even if you look at them, if you read the book, which I recommend, Sefa, you find the book and read, which is Beth Alison Barr's book,
Making of Biblical Womanhood.
The Making of Biblical Womanhood. Yeah. And in the book, I think there is somebody said something about the Jesus Christ said something about great is your faith, great is your faith. He used that more for more women than men. Great is your faith, like great is your faith. He complimented men, great is your faith, more women than men, actually. Yes, and Jesus Christ, and who did he reveal himself first to?
After his resurrection.
And that is the good news of the gospel, that you go out there and preach the gospel, that Jesus Christ is risen. Who were the first people to have met Jesus? It was women. So, I mean, men can try to make a case, but anyway, we always try. Anyway, so I don't think we have any more comments. Is there anything from Facebook anymore? Anything from YouTube? Any more comments or anything from anybody? Anybody wants to
Yeah, I was going to say that a bit more on the patriarchy. I feel like it only becomes an issue when men feel like they are being disrespected or they feel like they want to wield a bit more power. But even within the text that says that women should submit to their husbands, it also says men should love their wives as Christ loves the church. And what did Christ do for the church? He died for the church. It was sacrificial. So I feel like it would even be a non-issue in the first place if men were loving as they are supposed to, rather than insist that women submit as they think they should.
All the men would have been dead. I promise you, the love would have been so deep that men would have finished on this planet Earth.
Men are dying.
But yeah, so I feel like it always comes up when they feel like they are not being given as much power by the women in their lives as they should. That's when the whole talk of the man in patriarchy and all of that comes up. But I mean, there are, as Amanda said, there are perfectly stable Christian marriages, probably like my own, where there's no insistence on I'm the man and you are the woman. You know, and as Amanda said, my husband has not been smitten. Like, he's not dead.
He hasn't become a woman yet.
So it's when we try to make those boxes, like a woman should behave like this and a man should behave like this, that's when even men start to feel less of themselves if they're behaving in a particular way, because then it's like they are behaving like a woman. You know, because there's this particular behavior that is suited for a woman and this particular behavior that is suited for a man. But when we all express ourselves and live as children of God, we'll be fine.
Okay. So I think for me, my understanding is that relationships thrive on respect and not submission. No human being will give up her identity totally and completely. They'll fight back at some point. So then nobody is perfect or carries out a submission to perfection. But if you respect your husband as a human being, and not because he's a man, you respect your wife as a human being, not because she's a woman, you're more likely to have a stable home, a peaceful home, than to always asking the person to do as I say. Because we tend to say that, our grandmothers were not like that. Those women violated some of the rules that their husbands gave and sent their sons to school when their husbands said they will not pay school fees. Is that submission? So they were not like that every time. So we should stop making those wrong assumptions and understand that relationships thrive on respect. If we respect each other and we allow everybody space to be who they are, then we are going to have good homes. Master-servant relationships don't always work. People will revolt at some point and they will leave.
Interesting. So another thing that just came to my mind is something from the book about so in the writing in the book, there's a story about the TNIV, the NIV.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, was written, and which is a more a gender inclusive translation of the Bible. Yes, and then when that was released, then the RSV was released. Yes, so to counter it. So they actually wrote that to make it seem more like women are supposed to be subordinate, to men, which makes you the ESV, and the interesting thing is you have to read it. If you take the two versions and you put them side by side, you would see that this is a conspiracy to actually make sure that you see it dito, as if that is what is written there. And this is
the Lord.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Bible written in English is a translation from a language that is not that English friendly.
Yeah.
There are so
it's
many
based on
things that
understanding.
yeah, and also the people who wrote them were in a context. I think people discuss Paul and they talk about Paul saying this and saying that, and Paul, they were in a very patriarchal community. But for Paul to say that men are equal to women, slaves are equal to their masters, and all of that, those were very radical statements during that time. And I think that we need to kind of like we should be well read, dig up the history, and then find some of these things so that to open our minds as to what's going on around us. You can't be stuck with one version of the Bible and think that you know it all. I think that unless maybe you are reading the
Ancient.
yes, maybe the one where the language that Jesus Christ himself spoke. And now, yeah, maybe that one is more. Yeah.
And
Anyway.
for the person interpreting it will make you shoot the context, because if we are interpreting, we have to let you shoot the Ghanaian context. And the person saying Ghanaian context is probably where he was brought up or the home he was brought up in.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you have to, I think people have to learn to read on their own and also know God for themselves and stop relying on what my pastor said this. You know, there are some people that can quote or give you statements as if it's from the Bible. That's because that's what their pastor has said. And they've kept it in their mind. That's what they're repeating. You know, this
because
woman
that's
during the COVID time,
yeah,
who was challenging the police officer, for example. Some of the words she was saying, you could clearly tell that these are not her own words, but then these are words she's heard in church, so she thinks she can also profess them and it will happen.
Yeah. Interesting. So anyway, I think we are it's time to go. It's time to go back home and go and sleep. So Dorcas.
Yes, sir.
Charlie, thanks for joining us. Dorcas, thanks for joining us, Amanda. Dr. Amanda Odoi, and then Dr. Dorcas Cody. Two doctors. Me, I don't have any doctor. So we are here. We are leaving. I think the next topic we are discussing is marriage, really. We are going to talk about marriage and why our society is fixated on marriage and why it's not just our society. I think it's an international thing. Lots of places are. I mean, some people are moving away from the norm and deciding that marriage is not even a discussion in their communities. And those people are seen as outliers. Like we see them as, oh, when you hear about Japan and they say people are not getting married, it's like, hey, it's a serious matter and people have to go in to rescue the situation. Yeah, but I mean, what's the fuss about marriage? What's this whole thing about marriage? Why is marriage defining men? Why is marriage the thing that defines women? Why is marriage the thing that defines a human being? Why are we raising young people to think only about marriage and not even to think about it in the right way? Is to just raise people to say you need to get married without thinking about all the other things that need to be thought about. So thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you so much, Dorcas. So happy that we've had this discussion. I think it was a very fruitful discussion. So the book that we read was, Dorcas, help me.
The Making of Biblical Womanhood by Beth Alison Barr.
Beth Alison Barr. Beth is B-E-T-H. Alison, I won't spell it.
Yeah, Beth.
B-A-R-R. Dorcas, what do you say?
I'm saying yeah, Beth. Beth.
Sorry. Bar, the bar is B-A-R-R. Yeah. So you can find the book and get some. Yes, so we've posted the link in the conversations on Facebook, so you can get the book. And yeah, I think we should let her know that we are doing adverts for her. So thank you so much for joining us. We will come your way again another time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And end it now. Recording. Kobe, are you? Kobe. All right. Please, the recording has stopped, and now we can breathe.
You are still live.
Yeah. Oh, we are still live. Live streaming service is